Welcome everyone to another Life in Student Ministry video post. I'm hanging out with my father-in-law. We just had my daughter, his first granddaughter was born last Saturday at 4:44 a.m. So we're super excited about that. He's up from Texas. And my father-in-law has been a pastor for how many years?
Since '82, so it'll be 27 years.
That's almost as long as I've been alive. So this guy's got a lot of pastoral experience. And just want to talk to him a little bit today to share his wisdom about working with youth pastors and youth directors. What are some advice and tips that you've learned over the past 27 years of working with youth workers like us?
Well, there's lots of different people, obviously, and in my experience, there's lots of different kinds of youth workers and lots of different kinds of pastors. So in terms of getting along with youth directors, it really begins for me in terms of the interview process, trying to decide if it's somebody that I can work with. So that would be my first advice to anybody as a youth director, is that in the interview that you're checking out the pastoral staff and the other staff of the congregation. There's big churches and there's large churches, and if it's a matter of working with a group of people, music directors, children's ministries, interview them all. Let them all interview you. It's the right way to go about it. I think most churches do that now. They see recruitment of any team member as a part of a team, and everybody's got to be able to get along. My experience has been not so much having a problem with youth directors getting along with me as often negotiating the relationships between staff members, and one of them being the youth director. The competition for resources, both people, time, money, can sometimes be conflicted, and so it's important that the person be able to get along with everybody who's on the pastoral team and on the staff of the congregation.
So how do you work through some of those conflicts between you as their supervisor and them as your, it's not an employee-boss relationship, but kind of is.
Well, some is. It's really a dual relationship of both being an employer and also a pastor. A lot of issues are spiritual, a lot of issues aren't spiritual. A lot of them are just plain dealing with human nature and how to get along with people from different backgrounds and different personalities. We're all individuals, and we're all different. It goes for senior pastors as well as youth directors. Some senior pastors are hard to get along with. Some are easy to get along with. Some of them have a management style of being very involved in everything you do. They want to know the name of every kid that you talk to, would track all the stuff that you do. And other pastors want, go out there, do a good job, love the kids, love the Lord, and want to see the fruit of your ministry. So it's really a matter of figuring out what style each other has and work in relation to that. Some of the conflict, I think, in my experience, comes about because of a lack of focus on purpose. Is that sometimes we forget why we're doing what we're doing. We get caught up in our egos. We get caught up in do I look better than someone else looks? And as a result, the purpose of the ministry gets lost. So a lot of the conflict just comes back to staying on target. What is it that we're trying to accomplish here? The mission statement of your church, everybody should be able to recite that. Yeah. Making disciples of Jesus Christ is our mission statement. So if the purpose is making disciples, then our disciples being made. And that's the kind of question that has come back to. I don't care whether you get along or not in terms of hang out, fishing together or spending your off time together, but are you helping each other accomplish the purpose of the church? I think most conflicts can be resolved that way. Sometimes conflicts go deeper. Sometimes it has to deal with issues that are really hard to relate to. And so I advise everyone to have a counselor, whether it's a father confessor figure or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, somebody that you can talk to openly. Obviously, having somebody else in the profession that you're in, other youth directors to talk to, yeah, I think is very helpful. It's not always that helpful to talk to your spouse, because a lot of times, spouses don't look at things rationally. They'll look at it in terms of just on your side. And so when you say something bad about another team member, you can get over that. Your spouse won't get over it. Yeah. And so it's important not to draw other family relationships into issues or conflicts that you might have with your teammates.
Yeah. There's sometimes when I'll come home from work and it'll just be a really rough day, and Dana asked me, well, how was your day? And you don't want to lie to her, but neither is it appropriate or necessary for her to know some of the stuff that's going on, because like you said, she'll stick up for me and she'll totally be on my side, and she'll never see that person the same, even though as a guy I can kind of get over it easier than she can. So setting necessary boundaries about conflict at church, I think, is very helpful for her. And she thanks me for that. She's like, Tim, I know I don't know everything that's going on. She tells other people that too, and she's like, and I'm glad he doesn't, because I would just have a really hard time going there if I saw people who are. And
that's good too, because that allows them to have a relationship with her apart from anything that you're doing.
Right.
You know, so they can still love her and obviously love your baby girl, you know, regardless of whether they like you or not. So,
yeah.
So those relationships are important. And the psychological term for it is called triangling. And if you're not familiar with triangles, I'd suggest you really look into that, because it's one
triangles
of the triangling or triangles is what they're called.
I'm familiar with the shape.
Yeah, well, it's what happens. Using the example of you and Dana, is if you have a problem with your senior pastor, I know you have no problems with your senior pastor, but if you were, and you come home and you pour that out on your wife, you're forming a triangle, but she's not directly involved.
Oh, yeah.
And as a result, she gets stuck in her emotional feelings because she doesn't have the opportunity to deal directly with the other person that you're having a problem with.
Yeah.
And so that's why they call them stuck emotional triangles. Now, triangles are going to occur because people at the church will triangle you. You know, they may triangle you against your senior pastor, or against the music director, or against any person, or their own spouse.
Right.
You know, and as a result, triangles are impossible to keep from happening. So the skill that's needed to de-conflict is de-triangle. And how you de-triangle is just be honest and open. You know, if somebody says something about your spouse, you know, just say, hey, well, let's talk to Dana about that. And so you sit down with your spouse and that person, and you say, you know, well, tell me what you were saying about Dana. Most people don't have the ability to say it then.
Yeah, and most people are like, oh, let's go talk to Dana about it. They're like, oh, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, but sit down with them, and then if they won't do it themselves, then you say, well, you told me that Dana is so-and-so. And, you know, they'll be shocked. It'll have two advantages. One, you'll work through the problems. It won't be emotionally stuck anymore. The second is they're probably not going to come to you and tell you about Dana anymore. Because they don't want to
talk to everybody else, and then you're kind of in the dark completely, huh?
Which is much better.
Yeah,
I'd much rather they talk to, you know, if you're not going to deal with the problems up front, then that's a sin that we call gossiping. And if they do that, then that has to be confronted when it's gossip. But the same is true with you and your pastors. Other people, it's been my experience, I've been on staff and I've been a pastor, is that there's always people who will triangle you. And so when I was an associate pastor, people would come and they'd say something about the senior pastor. They do it automatically.
Yeah.
The object is to get out of that. And how you get out of that is say, let's go talk to him.
Yeah.
Let's sit down and we'll visit together. And like I said, most of the time they're going to want to avoid that. But if they don't, and you sit down and share, it really helps solve the problem. So
like in about a minute or less, how can youth workers best approach their senior pastors about when they have a conflict and bring something like, you're micromanaging me, back off? Or
I think the issue is always trust.
Okay.
And if you trust, it'll go better. It's been my experience within the church. Now, obviously there's some people you shouldn't trust, but senior pastors usually get the job because they have experience and they love the Lord. And so as a result, you should trust them.
The other thing about trust, though, is that's something you have to earn. It's not a right that you just give them, you know, respect and trust.
Well, I would suggest to you that if you've gone on staff at a church, or if the pastor comes on staff to a church that you're at, there's some trust that's deserved there.
It's true.
And is earned based on position, not based on past experience. So I would always suggest that whether you know them or not, or they've earned your trust, is to give them that trust in the beginning. Now, if they show themselves not trustworthy, that's a different issue.
Yeah.
But I think you need to trust the people you work with.
Cool. Well, his name's Danny Wayman. I don't think I introduced you in the beginning, just his father-in-law. But thanks for hanging out, sharing some of your wisdom. And he's at Williams Memorial United Methodist Church in Texarkana, Texas. So if you're swinging through, feel free to stop by. So thanks for hanging out with us today. We'll see you guys next week for another Life in Student Ministry video post.